Okay, right, I'm sat in a service station on my way to Chatham to do some drugs presentations, but on my way down I've seen a few posts on a few online pages regarding cycling, cruising and PCT. This seems to be coming up a lot just lately, so I wanted to give my take on it. Now, I don't want to particularly have a go at a couple of people in this, but I'm going to mention a few names. I'm not trying to make it personal, they're just examples. Now, Joe recently put a video up about saying that, in his opinion, blasting and cruising was a more effective and safer method. Now, as anyone that gives drug advice, steroid advice to other users, you have a certain level of responsibility. Well, you may not like that fact, but it's the truth. If you advise somebody to do something and it goes fucking Pete Tong, then you have an element of responsibility to that. Now, if you're 22, you're probably not really thinking about kids. You may be, it depends on the state of your relationship, depends where you are in your relationship. But if you're still having a good time, it's not going to be a concern. Now, here's a few facts. Damage to the hippocampus, or damage to the pituitary gland, which produces FH and LH and FSH, through steroid use is rare. Doesn't really happen. The damage occurs at the testes. Two things cause damage: long-term shutdown and elevated dose of drugs. Now, when we talk about superpharmacological doses, what we're referring to is any dose that is above natural therapeutic levels. So effectively, 200 milligram per week and upwards is superpharmacological. That causes damage to the testes. Fact. That's not disputable. Okay? That happens. When your body doesn't use part of it for a period of time, that part will atrophy, waste away, be assimilated. You know, if you ever put your arm in a pot, you take your pot off, you've lost a lot of muscle mass. Because that muscle mass is not being used, it's non-functional, the body assimilates it. When you don't use your testes, they shrink. We all know this. They get atrophied. They get assimilated by the body because they're no longer functional. You extend this for years, and that damage is going to be greater. Now, 22, you're not bothered. You want to be massive. You want to be this. 5-6 years later, you've met the woman of your dreams. You want to settle down. You want to get married. She wants to have kids. You might even want to have kids. You want to make her happy. Oh, fuck. Your balls don't work. No amount of PCT is going to fix this now. They are fucked. So, is the person that advised you to blast cruise going to be there and hold your hand through the 12 months and very expensive fertility treatment you're going to have to go through? Are they going to counsel your relationship when your missus is threatening to leave you because you can't produce a child for her? Or the stress it causes on the relationship, and the fact that you don't feel like a man anymore because you can't produce kids? No, they're not. That's when people ring me and I start mopping up the mess from this shitty fucking advice. Let's get things right, okay? Certain things happen when you take steroids. Now, everybody quotes, oh, this study shows testes healthy, this study shows testes are. 99% of these studies are on people that are either obese or have low natural test levels. And supplementation, yes, it's going to cause health improvements. There's a few that are on natural people, normal people with normal function, but they're few and far between. There is realistically none that cover the period of cycling and cruising. No studies, none at all. Never been done because it won't pass ethics. So there is no science to back up whether this is good or not. But let's say what science can tell us. We know the balls, once shut down, will atrophy. We know that long-term use of steroids in suprapharmacological doses causes damage to the testes. Those two are facts. So we know you are risking your long-term fertility. I have a mate that conceive while on cycle. Yeah, I can see both my kids while on cycle, and I can also see the behavioural traits that being on cycle has caused in those children. Because believe it or not, you conceive kids while you're on gear, and it will affect that child's development, their personality, and certain genetic traits. That's a fact too. However, for all these stories of people that have conceived while on cycle, there are just as many, if not more, on people that cannot conceive because they have been on cycle. So, if you're recommending blast crews, you better be there to pick up the pieces when these people decide that they want to have kids 5 years down the line, and they can't. So what other risks are there? Increased homocysteine, caused by gear, means an increased tendency to blood clot. Poor lipid management. Now, when you're advising that people stay on year round, are you advising that they get regular blood tests? Are you advising that they make sure their TRT dose is within natural range? Because if it goes out of natural range, then you start having all sorts of extra problems. Estrogen management, prolactin management. Because believe it or not, tests will raise prolactin just as much as anything else. So lipids. High fat in our bloodstream, and if you're taking exogenous jets at any level, you're going to increase your LDLs. Simple. Doesn't matter if it's at TRT doses, doesn't matter if it keeps you within range, you're still going to increase LDL. Long-term poor fat management, high levels of fat in the bloodstream is going to cause plaque buildup, narrowing of the arteries. Increases in homocysteine are going to cause an increase in blood clotting. Oh look, there's two problems that work very well together, aren't they? Narrow arteries and very quick clotting blood. So, to say that blast crews is healthier is utter fucking bullshit. These are only two. I haven't gone into thrombosis. I haven't gone into myocardial damage. You see, the thing is, when we take steroids, our heart walls thicken, our heart walls develop scar tissue, and it reduces our heart wall elasticity. Time off allows our heart walls to start to return to normal. Now, granted, if your TRT cruise is within normal range, i.e. mid-normal range, then you will undo some of this thickening damage. But if it's upper end or above, then you're not. It's going to be maintained. Then the next time you blast, this issue will increase. And so you compound it. Time off allows a lot of these side effects to diminish or go away. Heart wall to return to normal thickness. If you're going to blast crews, you need to test, you need to manage your lipids, you need to manage your red blood cell count, and you need to make sure that you have cardio to help manage heart wall thickness. And you need to make sure that your TRT levels are genuine and that your test levels when on TRT are mid-range and not upper or above upper. Otherwise, it's very unhealthy. The biggest concern with blast crews is testicular damage. The fact that you're going to make yourself infertile and you make yourself drug dependent for the rest of your life. Now, let me make one thing very clear. That pharma grade that your dealer told you your test was is a load of bullshit. Oh, it's come out of a pharmacy in Turkey. Yeah, that's right. Turkey, the largest amount of fake and counterfeit pharmaceutical drugs in the world. Or Bulgaria, second behind Turkey. The fact is there are a large amount of pharmaceutical drugs sold in Europe are counterfeit. Doesn't mean they don't contain steroids. But they're not made by a fucking pharma lab, they're made by UGL. So what's wrong with that? As long as it's dosed right. What's wrong with that is it's not pure. It contains heavy metals, large amounts of them. Long-term exposure to heavy metals will cause anxiety, CNS fatigue, stress, all sorts of problems. And you're telling somebody here that they should go on for 5 years plus. Don't get me wrong. A PCT is only effective if it is done correctly and you have adequate amount of time off post-PCT. And we're talking 6 to 8 weeks clear of any drugs whatsoever. Now, if you want to blast crews, that's your choice, but just be aware of what you're risking. Make sure you manage your bloods, make sure you manage your lipids, and make sure you keep on top of these things. Personally, I see nothing wrong with staying on to 8 at a push 9 months of the year, then doing a heavy PCT and taking 2-3 months off completely. You'll find that's what a lot of the pros now do. People like Nathan D'Asha take time off. So why you see these photos floating around of the pros having seriously diminished their size is because they're taking some downtime to let their bodies heal. Regards size and losing size. If you lose size off cycle, it's because your PCT is shit, your training is shit, or your diet is shit. It is that simple. You are relying on the drugs to cover holes in everything else. There is no reason for you to lose size unless you are massively developed. The only time I've ever had to cruise to maintain size was when I went over 360 pounds. You know? There's people like Reece Knights saying you should cruise on 300 mig. This is the guy that's put 2 of his clients in hospital, and I've had to repair, what, a dozen? I've had over a dozen of his clients come to me because he's fucked them up. One kid, first cycle, on over 2G a week, and fucking 500 of that was Tren. What the fuck? You know, I don't think knowledge should be based on somebody's appearance, but at the same time, my diet knowledge is pretty basic. That's why I'm a fat bastard. Now, basic diet knowledge is great, is fine for building mass, not a problem. Gets a bit more tricky when it comes to getting in condition, which is why I don't do contest prep. Because my knowledge is basic. But my knowledge on drugs and training is pretty good. That's why I got as big as I fucking got, because one thing you can't deny is I put size on. Now, if these guys are so clever at what they do, does it reflect in their physique? Might not. They might just not have the constitution for that. You know, it's not just about knowledge, it's about application, it's about hard work in the gym. But I suppose my point is here that if you are going to advise somebody, you better be ready to stand by that advice when it goes Pete fucking Tong. And there is no way in a million years you can justify that blast cruise is healthier than time off. It's just not true. The biggest risk is fertility, is testicular function. But there are other risks: blood clotting, heart wall thickening. Now, granted, when you get over a certain age, maybe PCT is probably not the most comfortable approach. You know, when you're in your 40s, yeah, test level's going to be in decline anyway. And if you've been cycling probably more than 5-6 years, to be honest, you've probably already got some testicular damage, because to a degree it's unavoidable. It will happen eventually. But at least at that point, you've probably had your family, you're not planning having more kids, and you're pretty stable and settled where you are with life when it comes to a relationship. You know, I deal with a lot of people on a daily basis with problems relating to the gear. What makes me laugh is some of these people are all over the internet promoting their usage and how great they feel, and then they're messaging me saying, I feel like a sack of shit, I've got this problem, I've got that problem, I've got that problem. Why can't you be honest? What's wrong with that? You're so scared of being judged, you're so insecure. And we haven't even touched on the effect on the brain with long-term uses, on anxiety, on depression, on neuropeptide wide, on memory function, all sort of things that long-term usage affects. Most people don't start using gear with severe body image issues. They may have some body image issues, but they're not severe. Without a doubt, by the time they finish their cycle, or they're cycling, generally speaking, they do have severe body image issues. It comes with the territory, unfortunately. We become more aware of our physiques, we become more judgmental of our physiques, because that's the environment in which we occupy. Therefore, we start to become drug dependent. There is no reason to stay on cycle to maintain size. That is just a bullshit excuse, because there's something wrong with your commitment to what you do. Secondly, there are health risks. It is not the healthy option. Those risks can be managed, but you need to be aware of them to manage them. By far, time off for most people is the healthier option. It's not always practical, and I appreciate that. And you have to make that decision for what's best for you. But if you're making a decision to stay on drugs based on the fact that you're scared of losing size, then you really have to start to question your relationship with these drugs and whether it is healthy or not. You probably don't want to do that. You probably don't want to face the fact that you are now a drug addict. But that's the truth of it. If you can't come off these drugs for fear of losing size, then your relationship with these drugs is unhealthy and it's dangerous. These drugs are not safe, but their sides can be managed. But you need to know how to manage them and what to look for. And if you're going to give anyone advice on drugs, you better be ready to stand by that and deal with the consequences when it goes fucking Pete Tong. Right, enough of my ranting. I'm going to get off.